Welcome back. And we were talking about steps in QSPM, and we discussed attractiveness score, total attractiveness score, and sum total attractiveness score. Now we are moving towards the demonstration of how these steps are incorporated in the QSPM matrix. Now, before I show you the demonstration, there are certain positive features of the QSPM. And the positive features are that sets of strategies can be examined sequentially or simultaneously. The second positive feature is requires strategists to integrate pertinent external and internal factors into decision process. And the third positive feature of the QSPM is that can be adapted for use by small and large for-profit and non-profit organizations. So all can use this tool effectively to find out their strategic option. Yet there are certain limitations of the QSPM as well. For example, always requires intuitive judgments and educated assumptions. And the second limitation is only as good as the prerequisite information and matching analysis upon which it is based. So these are the limitations of the QSPM. And as we could see in the limitation section, that intuitive judgment is always there along with analysis. Now, this is the demonstration of QSPM. And again, I'm referring to a small retail computer store. And the retail computer store has developed their QSPM in the light of their IFE and EFE factors, and then assigning attractiveness score, total attractiveness score, and then eventually calculating sum total attractiveness score. As we could see in the left column, that they have written 8 opportunities, they have written 6 threats, and then they have allocated the same weights as the weights were allocated in the IFE EFE matrix. And then they have taken 2 strategic options to be evaluated. The first strategic option is buy new land and build new larger store. And the second option they have taken is fully renovate existing store. And then they have given attractiveness score to these 2 strategic options. And as we discussed, that the attractiveness score would be from 1 to 4. The 1 would mean not attractive and the 4 would mean mostly attractive. And then multiplying the attractiveness score with the weight and would give the corresponding total attractiveness score, which is TAS. For example, look at the first opportunity. The opportunity was population of city growing 10%. And the weight given to this factor was 0.10. And when they sorted out that buy new land and build new larger store, the attractiveness was 4. As if they have planned that this is the best option they can avail. This is highly attractive. Whereas fully renovate existing store is having attractiveness of 2, which means it is not that much attractive as compared to build new land and build new larger store. Now, after giving attractiveness score of 4 and 2 to the respective strategies, multiply 4 with 0.10 and multiply 2 with 0.10, and you'll be having the results of TAS, which is 0.40 and 0.20. Likewise, we have to pick one opportunity, one threat, one strength, one weakness, and we would keep on picking these 4 factors one by one and comparing all those factors with our strategic options, and would see that how much attractive our strategic options are as compared to all of the factors we have listed in our left column. So this is the second half of the QSPM in which strengths and weaknesses are written. In this case, the example is filled with 9 weaknesses, 8 weaknesses, and 9 strengths. And then again, we have allocated attractiveness scores to each of the corresponding strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, and calculated TAS. You can also see in certain instances, we have placed a dash. The dash would mean that that particular strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat is not having any particular impact on the choices we are comparing, the strategies we are talking about, the alternatives we have sorted out. Okay. And if we have given the dash to one strategic option in one column, that would mean that the all strategic options would carry the dash for that particular strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat. So after calculating all the TAS, we have to add those two columns of TAS, and eventually we'll be reaching to the total. Look at the bottom of the slide. We have a total, which is 4.36 and 3.27. Now these two factors, 4.36 and 3.27, are the sum total attractiveness scores. And the higher value of the sum total attractiveness score would indicate that that is the strategy we need to follow. So in our case, in our example, we have 4.36 as the higher sum total attractiveness score value, and this 4.36 goes to the option that buy new land and build new larger store. Okay, as compared to fully renovate existing store, which is carrying the value of sum total attractiveness score equal to 3.27. So remember that if there is a considerable difference between these two values, then definitely the strategic choice is clear. But supposedly, if our sum total attractiveness score values are having a very small difference, so that would make us indifferent between those two strategies, and then definitely we'll be relying more on our intuition to finalize that which particular strategy is better for us. So this is, according to Fred R. David, only quantitative tool available to finalize your strategic option, your future course of action. Along with that, we can definitely have further arguments on our sorted result in terms of brainstorming nominal group techniques. By adopting nominal group techniques, by going for Delphi techniques, we can have different discussion sessions in which we can further debate on the strategy, which is sorted out through QSPM. But remember, always remember that we have to make a mix of the intuition and analysis. And we have to make our analysis stronger enough so that we can confidently say that the strategic option sorted by these tools is the strategy we should be following in our next coming financial years. So that basically concludes our strategy formulation analytical framework 1, which is presented by Fred R. David. Now we are moving towards the strategy formulation analytical framework 2. This is the second framework, which is part of your phase 4. The phase 3 would be related with strategy formulation analytical framework 1. And now we are going to talk about strategy formulation framework 2 and 3, which will be part of your phase 4. Now, in this particular strategy formulation framework, strategies are evaluated according to their suitability to the firm's strategic situation, their feasibility in terms of resources and competencies, and their acceptability to key stakeholder groups. So these are the main 3 filters we have in the strategy formulation framework 2: suitability, feasibility, and acceptability. And we would pass our strategies through these 3 filters, and whichever strategy passes all the 3 filters in more successful way is our final strategy. Now, what do we mean by suitability? The strategy which is suitable is the strategy which can exploit strengths, that is, unique resources and core competencies. The strategy which is suitable can rectify an organization's weakness and deal with problems identified in it. The strategy which is suitable can neutralize or deflect environmental threats. The strategy which is suitable can help the firm to seize opportunities, can satisfy the goals of organization, can fill the gap identified by the gap analysis. We'll be doing gap analysis in next coming slides. Can generate and maintain competitive advantage, can involve an acceptable level of risk, and can suit the politics and corporate culture. Now, these are the parameters to find out that which strategy is more suitable for us. And whichever strategy is having more value in contrast with these factors is the more suitable strategy we are available with. The second filter we have is known as feasibility. And in feasibility, we talk about 8 M's model. The 8 M's model is composed of machinery, makeup means organizational structure, the arrangements, management, markets, materials, men and women, methods, and money. These are the most important 8 factors which would determine for us that either the strategy is feasible for us or not. So these are the 8 factors which would be there to calculate the feasibility of the strategic option we have and to find out which one is the best suited and best feasible strategy. As you know, this methodology of strategy formulation is devised by Johnson and Scholes in his book of corporate strategy. So the basic concept behind this strategy formulation framework is that we should be very much clear that what are the strategies available to us and how can we shortlist them based upon these 3 factors of suitability, feasibility, and acceptability. When we talk about acceptability framework, this acceptability would be based upon financial considerations like return on investment, profits, cash flow, cost benefit analysis, earnings per share. The acceptability can be in terms of customers, banks, governments, the public, and the risks involved. So these are all the aspects we can be calculating in terms of acceptability. Now, how these 3 factors, suitability, feasibility, and acceptability, are associated with one another and are there in the strategy formulation framework, let's see a flow sheet diagram. Now, this is the flow sheet diagram we are available with, and it is talking about strategy formulation analytical framework. This strategy formulation analytical framework is based upon 3 stages. The stage 1 is known as strategic analysis. The stage 2 is known as strategic choice. And the stage 3 is known as strategic implementation. When we look at strategic analysis, this is just like our environment analysis, which we did in the framework of Freda David. In strategic analysis, we need to start from defining our mission and vision. The mission would be available. The mission would be elaborating the purpose, the policies, the competencies, the products, the values, and about the culture. The vision and strategic intent would be talking about where the organization wants to be. And combining these 2 can give us the clue to find out the stakeholder expectations and then to go for eventually calculating our quantified measures, which are our SMART objectives, and our SMART objectives in financial terms, our SMART objectives in strategic terms, and obviously in our SMART objectives in operational terms as well. So through qualitative mission and vision, we reach to quantitative strategic, financial, and operational objectives. And along with that, we also need to find out the stakeholder expectations. And to find out stakeholder expectations, we need to apply a concept which is boundary spanning. And in boundary spanning, we actually identify that which ones are our direct and which ones are our indirect stakeholders. And we need to develop a complete list of stakeholders as well. including our suppliers, buyers, government, media, competitors, like communities. Like there are so many aspects in which different types of stakeholders are associated with our organization. So once the stakeholder expectations are developed, once the quantified measures are developed, once the mission vision is clear and well communicated, the next step would be to go for environmental analysis, which would be counting upon opportunities and threats, which would include the pest analysis, the Porter's 5 forces, and developing different scenarios. And in terms of position audit, we need to talk about strengths and weaknesses, which are focusing upon resources, competencies, value chain, systems and structures, portfolio analysis of the firm. So these are all the position audits we need to focus upon. Once the strengths, weakness, opportunity, threats are sorted out, that would conclude in our SWOT analysis. Our SWOT analysis is obviously the sum total of the opportunities, threats, strengths, and weaknesses. And once the SWOT analysis is done, then we reach to the level where we can find out the gap. Now, the gap analysis is focusing upon the gaps in performance. And as I told you earlier, that whenever in strategy we talk about the word performance, it would mean productivity, profitability, and satisfaction. So our gap analysis, which is talking about the performance measures, would be telling us that what are the aspects in which we are lacking behind, what are the deficiencies which the organization is exposed to, and that would all be called corporate appraisal. Once the corporate appraisal in terms of SWOT analysis and gap analysis is clear and discussed, we would move to the second stage of strategy formulation analytical framework, which is known as strategic choice. In context of corporate strategic choice, first of all, we have to generate different strategic options, and those strategic options would be generated by value chain analysis, developing different micro and macro scenarios, developing and discussing generic strategies like, excuse me, like cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. And we'll be talking about product market vector, which is like focusing upon market development, product development, market penetration, diversification strategies. So generating options is basically related to the product market vector and generic strategies, which is giving us the options that what are our current markets, what is the state of our current product, and how we are planning to expand the product line and the markets. So you have to see that what are the strategic options available to you in terms of the objectives you have already defined. You can also think in terms of acquisition and growth strategies. It can be vertical integration, horizontal integration. Now, in generating options, when we are talking about strategic choices in strategy formulation analytical framework 2, we are available with different strategies. Now, to shortlist those strategies, we have to put those strategies in the filters of acceptability, suitability, and feasibility. As I told you in the previous slides, the acceptability would mean the concerns of the stakeholders. The suitability would mean mission and strategic intent and associated options. And the feasibility would talk about the 8 M's in terms of our resources, like the machinery, like men and women we have, like the money we have, like the makeup of an organization. So these are all the feasibility or resource-based considerations. Now remember, once the strategic options are generated, and out of those options, any strategy has passed the criteria of suitability, feasibility, and acceptability, then we'll be reaching to the stage of strategic implementation. Now, up till strategic choice, that is mostly analytical ability, that is mostly intuition-based analysis. But strategic implementation is talking about actually the demonstration of that strategy in physical terms, which would obviously require the aspects of leading and controlling. So in strategic implementation, when we talk about implementation aspects, resource planning, operations plan, structural development, cultural issues, change management, functional strategy development. These are all the options we need to go for once we have to execute the strategy in physical, tangible terms. Once the strategy is executed, we'll be available with, look at the next box, we are available with actual performance. And as I told you, performance in terms of profitability, productivity, and satisfaction of the stakeholders. Now, once the performance is available, the actual performance is there, we have to compare that performance in association with our defined objectives and tools, and we have to review and control and look at the gaps, look at the deficiencies, look at the factors which are not being able to accomplish. And once the feedback controls, feed forward controls, and concurrent controls are incorporated, then the last step would be that we have to reach again at strategic analysis stage. And that strategic analysis stage, the feedback would be that either to continue that strategy for the next year or not, for which we have developed two terms in the earlier sessions, re-energizing and re-engineering. So those were the feedback loops which we are available with now. And we are at a stage to find out that our next financial year should be pursued in the same fashion or not. So this was your strategy formulation framework 2. And now we are looking at the strategy formulation analytical framework 3. This strategy formulation analytical framework is devised by Thompson and Strickland in his book of strategic management. And Thompson and Strickland have come up with 7 questions. And they try to find the answers of these 7 questions to finalize the strategy. The first question they need to address is that what are the industry's dominant economic traits? The second question they need to address is what is competition like and how strong are the comparative forces? The third question in the strategy formulation analytical framework 3 is what forces are at work to change industry conditions? The fourth question we need to look at in strategy formulation analytical framework 3 is which companies are in strongest and weakest positions? The fifth question is what strategic moves are rivals likely to make next? The sixth question is what are the key factors for competitive success? And the seventh question we need to focus upon is the industry attractive or unattractive and why? Now, these are the 7 questions we need to discuss in detail in the coming slides, which would be comprehending our discussion about the strategy formulation analytical framework 3 developed by Thompson and Strickland. Now, starting our discussion from question number 1, which is talking about that what are the industry's dominant economic traits? The factors included in dominant economic traits are, number 1, market size and growth rate. For that, you need to have numbers. You need to see that how many firms are operating in the industry. You need to see that what is the demand level. You need to see that how many companies of local level orientation, national level orientation, and multinational level orientation are operational in your area. And you need to see that how many products or services are sold in a given span of time. So for all that concerned, you need to focus upon the market size and the growth rate of industry sales. And obviously that is the data which you also need to sort out for BCG matrix y-axis values. As we discussed that in the BCG value, the BCG matrix y-axis is talking about industry sales growth rate. So that can also be the number which can be used over here. The second factor in dominant economic traits is talking about scope of competitive rivalry. And this scope of competitive rivalry can also be devised through comparative force analysis, which we have already discussed in the earlier sessions. The third factor, which is talking about industry's dominant economic traits, is related to number of competitors and their relative sizes. The next is prevalence of backward and forward integration. The next aspect can be the entry and exit barriers. Obviously, these were the issues we discussed in the earlier sessions, that what are the entry barriers and what are the exit barriers. And we'll be talking about further detail of these factors as well in the next coming slides. The next thing as dominant economic trait is talking about nature and pace of technological change. We also need to see the product and customer characteristics. We also need to sort out the scale economies and experience curve effects. And we also need to focus upon capacity utilization, resource requirements for the industry as a whole. And obviously the pie analysis we discussed in the earlier sessions, potential industry earning, or focused upon industry profitability. So these are the factors we need to talk about when we are concerned with industry's dominant economic traits. Now, let's look at the further detail of the dominant economic factors. In terms of, suppose, market size, in terms of the market size, we are focusing upon certain strategic importance factors, which include small markets don't tend to attract new firms, and large markets attract firms looking to acquire rivals with established positions in attractive industry. We can see the economic features in relation with strategic importance. The second economic feature is market growth rate, and the market growth rate in association with strategic importance is talking about that fast growth breeds new entry, slow growth spawns increased rivalry and shakeout of weak rivals. When we look at capacity surplus and shortages, the strategic importance we have is talking about surpluses push prices and profit margins down, and shortages pull them up. And when we talk about industry profitability, high profit industries attract new entrants. Depressed conditions lead to exit. When we look at entry-exit barriers, remember that high barriers protect positions and profits of existing firms. Low barriers make existing firms vulnerable to entry. When we talk about product is big ticket item for buyers, its strategic importance would be that more buyers will shop for lowest prices. When we talk about economic features related to standard products, the strategic importance would be that buyers have more power because it's easier to switch from seller to seller. When we look at rapid technological change, the strategic importance would be that it raises risk. Investments in technology facilities, equipment may become obsolete before they wear out. In terms of capital requirements, remember that its strategic importance would be that big requirements make investment decisions critical. Timing becomes important and it creates a barrier to entry and exit. When we talk about vertical integration as economic feature, the strategic importance we have is that it raises capital requirements, often creates competitive and cost differences among fully versus partially versus non-integrated firms. And in terms of economies of scale, remember that it increases volume and market share needed to be cost competitive. And in terms of rapid market and product innovation, remember the strategic importance we have and the relevance we are creating is talking about that shortens product life cycle, increases risk because of opportunities for leapfrogging, that you take the advantage of the market leaders research and development and formulate your own product by supposedly reverse engineering and likewise. So these are the factors which we take in consideration of economic features when we talk about dominant economic traits, and we have seen that what is the association of these dominant economic aspects with the strategic importance for the firm. The second question, which Thomson and Strickland has sorted out to formulate a strategy, is talking about 5-force model of competition, which is commonly known as Porter's 5 forces. And we have already discussed these forces in our previous discussions related to external audit. So that is the same information we need to use in this question number 2, which is talking about that what is competition like and how strong are the comparative forces. And the major objective was to identify main sources of competitive force and strengths of these forces. And the key analytical tool, as I told you, is 5 forces model of competition. The third question, which Thomson and Strickland has devised for the strategy formulation framework, is talking about that what forces are at work to change industry conditions. Now that is something new which we have to talk about now, that what are the forces which are also known as driving forces, which are underlying causes of changing industry and competitive conditions. So remember that industries change because forces and driving industry participants, because forces are driving industry participants to alter their actions. Now, how to find out these driving forces? The first step is identify those forces likely to exert greatest influence over next 1 to 3 years. Usually, no more than 3 to 4 factors qualify as real drivers of change. Okay, and we have to sort out those 3 to 4 factors which are going to have impact on our industry for next 1 to 3 years. And to assess impact, remember, we have to sort out that what differences will the forces make, and either those differences are favorable or unfavorable. These are some of the common types of driving forces which can have impact on our industry for next coming 1 to 3 years. For example, look at the first driving force, that is internet and e-commerce opportunities. The second driving force, which can be increasing globalization of industry. The third driving force, which is changes in long-term industry growth rate. The fourth driving force can be changes in who buys the product and how they use it. The next driving force can be product innovation. It can be technological change, process innovation. It can be marketing innovation. So these are all the driving forces which can change the industrial situation and which can have impact for, say, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years and onwards. And these are all the factors for which all the competitors in the industry would be conscious about. These are some of other driving forces I have sorted out for you. For example, entry and exit of major firms, diffusion of technological and technical knowledge, changes in cost and efficiency, market shift from standardized to differentiated products, regulatory policies, governmental legislations. These are all taken up as driving forces, and many of these factors would also be sorted out in your pest analysis as well. Changing societal concerns, attitudes and lifestyles, again, that is driving, these are driving forces. And changes in degree of uncertainty and risk, these are again the driving forces we are exposed to. So the question we are talking about, the question number 3, is focusing upon the driving forces, and we have to sort out that what are the drivers of our industry so that we can reach to the final strategy which is to be executed in the next coming financial years. Now, looking at question 4, the question 4 is talking about which companies are in strongest and weakest positions. And for that, we need to develop another matrix, which is known as strategic group mapping. Now, the expression of the strategic group mapping is that one technique for revealing the different comparative positions of industry rivals is strategic group mapping. And when we talk about strategic group mapping, a strategic group consists of those rivals with similar comparative approaches in an industry. Now, when you're talking about strategic group map, remember that firms in the same strategic group have two or more comparative characteristics in common. And those comparative characteristics can be that they sell in same price quality range, they cover same geographic area, they may be vertically integrated to same degree, they have comparable product line breadth, they have emphasized same type of distribution channels, they offer buyers similar services, they use identical technological approaches. So remember that out of these or many others, there can be two or more competitive characteristics in common. Now, there are certain steps to follow when you are drawing a strategic group map. First of all, we would be looking at these steps, and then I'll be showing you the demonstration of a strategic group map with example. The step one is identify competitive characteristics that differentiate firms in an industry from one another. Step two is plot firms on a two variable map using pairs of these differentiating characteristics. The step three is assign firms that fall in about the same strategy space to same strategic group. The step four is talking about draw circles around each group, making circles proportional to size of group's respective share of total industry sales. So these are the four steps which we need to follow when we are designing and drawing the strategic group map. Now look at this demonstration of strategic group map, and I'll be elaborating all the four steps to you once again. First of all, we have to see that which industry we belong to. Supposedly in this example, it is written that strategic group map of the video game industry. And by this industry, we mean to say the set of similar firms. Okay, this is not any industry which we have developed through Pakistan Standard Industrial Classification. This is the industry which means the set of similar firms. So when we are designing strategic group map of the video game industry, we need to have two axis values. The first one is type of video games, suppliers, distribution channels, and the second is overall cost to players of video games. For its further detail, join in the next session and we'll be discussing in that the details of strategic group map.